When my life hit rock bottom, I met a Buddhist monk in a hospital meditation room. He saw through my pain and taught me practices that had been passed down for thousands of years. Those practices pulled my life back from complete collapse and helped me build the life I once thought was impossible. There was a moment in my life when everything completely collapsed. My finances were falling apart. Both of my parents had been diagnosed with cancer, and I had just lost the job that had been supporting all of us. It felt like I had reached the absolute bottom. And strangely, that was exactly when something unexpected happened. I met a monk. That encounter ended up becoming the beginning of a completely new chapter in my life. But before I tell you about that, there's something important you should know. Around that time, I had begun to notice something disturbing. The financial patterns in my life were starting to look exactly like my father's. My father had gone bankrupt twice, and somehow my own life seemed to be moving in the same direction. If you want to hear the full story about the strange financial pattern that appeared in both my father's life and mine, I've linked that video below. In this video, I want to tell you about what happened next. Because meeting that Buddhist monk led me to discover something about the human mind that changed everything. During my rock bottom period, I frequently accompanied my parents to the same university hospital for both of their cancer treatments. The hospital offered free meditation sessions for patients and caregivers. At the time, I wasn't looking for anything spiritual. I was simply exhausted. But that's where I met a monk who had come from a Buddhist temple to teach us meditation. And that encounter changed the direction of my life. At the time, I was an unmarried young woman who had lost her job, and I was taking care of both of my parents during their cancer treatments alone. The monk seemed to understand my situation without me even explaining it. He could see that I was completely drained from caregiving, that I was under extreme financial stress, that I felt mentally pushed to the edge, that I was losing hope in a dire situation. And strangely, he seemed to know something else about me too. At that time, I had already begun reading books about the subconscious mind. I had started to suspect that there was some hidden force in the mind, something that had the power either to destroy a life or to create one. So when he introduced meditation, I didn't approach it casually. I took it very seriously, and he noticed that. Eventually, he told me something that stayed with me. He said, "If you can quiet the inner voice that limits the future based solely on past hardships and present circumstances, then you can achieve anything." But he also said something else. He told me this process happens in 2 stages. First, you must clear the karma that has already been passed down to you. And second, once the mind becomes empty and clear, you can plant the intention of the life you want. The first step was much harder than I expected. The monk told me to simply sit down, close my eyes, and meditate for 30 minutes. It sounded easy, but when I actually tried to do it, I discovered something shocking. 10 minutes felt impossible. Even 5 minutes felt incredibly long. Just sitting with my eyes closed felt unbearable. I was struggling. Which doesn't make sense, right? Why would doing nothing feel so difficult? But it was difficult. It was because of the voice inside my head, my ego. The ego constantly talked: fear, judgment, limiting beliefs, resistance, stories about the past, stories about the future, how I've been a victim, and how I'll be a victim. And for the first time in my life, I became aware of just how loud that voice inside my head was. I realized it had been repeating the same stories over and over again. I hate my father for losing money. My life was ruined because of his failures. Money is difficult to earn. Spending money is painful. I need to make money fast. What I have is not enough. I need more. The reason my finances are a mess is because of my father. These thoughts kept looping endlessly. And that's when I realized something frightening. These weren't just random opinions. They were coming from deep, limiting beliefs about money and myself. Belief that money is scarce, that money can disappear at any moment, that I am a victim of circumstances. Those beliefs, unbeknownst to me, were quietly running a program inside my mind and shaping the reality I was living. A reality where money was hard to earn, where it constantly disappeared, where I remained being a helpless victim of unfortunate circumstances. and where somehow my father's financial story kept repeating in my own life. But even after realizing this, I still couldn't stop the voice, not even for 1 minute. And the monk told me something very important. He said, I don't know where and how you got that voice, the karma, maybe from your ancestors, maybe from your trauma in this life or the past, but unless you learn to tame this voice, you will never truly be free from the voice, and it will perpetuate your past. You have to refuse to be dragged by the karma. Otherwise, karma will dictate your life, and the same patterns would keep repeating, generation after generation. From grandfather to father, from father to child. He said if I wanted to break that chain, daily meditation was necessary. So I followed his instructions. Whenever I closed my eyes to meditate, it didn't take long before the voice in my mind started talking again. I simply became aware of the voice, and then I quieted it, and when it appeared again, I quieted it again. No engagement. The voice always returned within seconds, which meant meditation felt incredibly difficult at first, so I started small, 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, once or twice a day, and after about 2 or 3 months I could finally sit for 30 minutes. It works a lot like the YouTube algorithm. If there are certain types of videos you don't want to see, the worst thing you can do is engage with them. You shouldn't click them. You shouldn't comment on them. You shouldn't even press like or dislike. If you simply ignore them, eventually the algorithm stops showing you those kinds of videos, but if you click out of curiosity, or leave an angry comment, or even watch it just to see what it's about, the algorithm assumes you're interested, and it keeps showing you more and more of the same thing. The voice works in a very similar way. Important thing to remember is the key is, you don't have to feel like you have to completely shut it off. The monk said even his voice hasn't disappeared completely after 50 years of training. The goal is to notice it, separate yourself from it, and refuse to identify with it, and remain the observer of the voice, not the voice itself. And through daily practice, I began to notice something interesting. Even outside of meditation, I began to notice when that voice would arise, and gently quiet it. It felt as if I had installed a kind of virus-detecting software in my mind that runs all day. Whenever the program started running, I could see it, and once I could see it, I realized it had much less control over me. Once the ego becomes quieter, something else begins to happen. The mind becomes very still. The monk described this as the state of emptiness, or state of void. In Buddhism, it is often called the state of emptiness or openness. But interestingly, modern neuroscience describes something very similar. Scientists call it the theta brainwave state. Your body is completely relaxed, but your mind is still aware. This state often occurs just before you fall asleep. Right at that moment when you haven't fallen asleep yet, but you easily could. And when you stay relaxed in your heart while remaining awake in your mind, scientists say that you enter the theta brainwave pattern. And in this state, something remarkable happens. The door between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind becomes wide open. When the analytical mind is quiet, the brain becomes suggestible. Suggestibility simply means your ability to accept an idea as true without constantly analyzing it, without resisting it, without rejecting it. And this is exactly how the subconscious mind gets programmed. When a thought enters the mind in this state, it can directly influence the deeper systems of the brain. In other words, the patterns that quietly shape our lives. And this is why meditation has been practiced for thousands of years. They just did not have science to back it up. When the mind reaches this state, you can begin to rewrite the programs running in the background of your life. And the way you do that is by visualizing yourself already living the life you want. Not wanting it, not chasing it, but experiencing it internally with all your senses as if it is happening right now. Now the question becomes, how do you actually enter this state during meditation? There are specific meditation techniques that help the brain reach the theta state more consistently. And in the next video, I'm going to show you exactly how to reach that state deliberately and how to use it to begin reprogramming the subconscious patterns that may have been shaping your life for years. Because once you understand how to access this state intentionally, you are no longer simply reacting to the programs installed in the past. You can begin writing new ones. I'll see you in the next video.